Or he did.
He's probably gonna come out 302. Might have occurred.
I think everything is go forward. Yeah, there you go. All right, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order, and then I'm gonna immediately suspend the meeting for Roger's presentation. Roger,
Okay,
go for it, it's all yours.
all of us. Okay, so we're gonna talk about WSJT-X and Grid Tracker and a couple other things tonight. That's the primary. I don't know where everybody's at. Does everybody have it already installed, or you need to?
I've installed Grid Tracker and FT, and I've used them both.
Okay, everybody else has used them both?
No,
I got a lot of slides on how to set it up and stuff, but I'll skip through pretty quick.
I don't have. That's okay.
Yeah, you don't have Grid Tracker?
I
do not, but I can.
Okay.
No, just slow me down if you need to. Zach said I had 3 hours, so I've got plenty of slides. Okay, well, he doesn't want to click forward and just go anywhere.
Oh. Go for it, now you should be good.
Okay. This can get pretty complicated. With Grid Tracker and WSJT-X, you can actually have multiple radios, and some people do. One of the things that's suggested is you like a little SDR, throw either a beverage on the ground or a loop on the ground, just as a receive-only antenna. So if you want to monitor, it's like say 6 meters, when it's the magic band that pops up once in a while, you can stick that on an SDR and just monitor that. Or you can have multiple radios, multiple receivers set up, which I found is very handy. So anyway, on the left-hand side, we got radios, WSJT-X kind of next over, and then Grid Tracker, then all the places that it can report out to, including PSK Reporter, which is also another really handy place to have things reported out to you. We'll see that later.
All right, I'll just advance it for you, I don't know why.
Okay, that sounds
so
good.
problematic.
Okay, if you're going to do this, you have never installed, you're going to want to download these files, and then go ahead and run it. WSJT-X, you're going to go down about a quarter of the way down the page and you'll find the Windows installation files. You get to the root of the page and it's like, it's confusing. And then, but once it downloads, just go ahead and install and take all the defaults, pretty straightforward. Yeah, you're going to have to,
Yep, that's fine.
or I can do it. I just
So yeah, if you just want to hit the space bar, you should.
And then WSJT-X setup. If you go into file settings, you'll get to all the different settings. We'll take a quick look at all of those. It's not like everybody's got this part of it installed. It's going to want your call sign and your grid square. If you're not sure of your grid square, of course, you can go out to Google and Google how to find it. Chances are everybody here is FN43 or something real close to that. And 4 digits is all it really wants. I've got FM43 TT in mind, just be a little more granular. And then this is where the rubber meets the road. It wants your rig, make, and model up top. And I had those things circled when I started out. Apparently it's decided to uncircle them. So up top, you got to pick your rig. You probably know that. Either like an ICOM 7300 or a Flex 6000 or whatever. Once you get that right, most everything usually falls right into place because it's using the ham lib, and they've done a real good job on the common radios. If you got one of the older,
I got an old ICOM 728, and I had to go through trial and error about 20 times before I found the right combination.
Yeah, well then-
It was wrong.
yeah, with an older like Kenwood or ICOM non-USB radio, you may be playing with this for a while and Googling a bit. And the serial port is where you'll get hung up every single time. Your friend is device manager here, and you'll see I've got under COM ports, I got a flex radio, so I got a whole bunch of COM ports. But if you just go to the Windows, where you can type in a name of a program, just type in the word device and it will pop up with device manager. It'll bring this up, you go ahead and expand. That doesn't, oh, it doesn't know, I'll think later on it. I'm not sure if that's-
Yeah, it's not gonna show up too much on the screen,
It
unfortunately.
doesn't work on the screen, okay. Anyway, ports, where it says ports, common LPT, you can expand that. And it will be obvious, like an ICOM 7300 is gonna say an ICOM 7300, then followed by, you know, COM 17 or whatever it chose. And just because yours is COM 17, his may be COM 3. And if you reboot the system or something, it may change it. There is a way of hard fixing that, but I didn't go into that detail here because we could maybe talk about that if people had questions. One of the Thursday nights when we're doing more of a
Yeah,
hardware.
I think this would be a great, topic to do one of the informals with.
Yep.
Workshop.
Yeah, this can be expanded on a lot.
Oh,
But-
yeah.
Since I only had 3 hours, I had to keep it cut down. Okay, that circle stayed. Usually all those connections are on, spot on. You will want to test, it says test cat and test PTT. That's the best way to find out if you've got it right, because if it doesn't test, you're going nowhere. So they did provide in WSJT-X those 2 buttons, which are very handy. Next screen here is audio, which is the other place where you've got to get it right or it doesn't work. So on the top is going to be the source, which is going to be the radio. It'll come up and say, it's an ICOM 7300 or it's whatever. And then what's called the sync or the output, which is the transmitter, is the bottom one. And there's something flaky about Hamlin. If you're running a flex, it tells you all the ones that are inputs too. That's why the list is about a mile long. But again, device manager is your friend. Go up and look in audio inputs and outputs, and you'll see the radio. So you'll know what it called it. The ICOM seems to be, at least the 705 that I got is pretty good. It calls out a sensible name. Some radios may not even call it a sensible name. It'll just say like, USB sound card. That's real helpful.
Yeah, when I use my digi-rig, that's exactly what it does, is just like sound card 1 or 2 or 3
Yeah.
or 4.
It depends on the radio and what's in there for firmware. But they're getting better all the time about making it easier, making it make more sense. The next thing in here, you're gonna need your call signs again. And this is to enable PSK recorder. This is kind of optional, but recommended. So enable PSK recorder and then the UEP server routes, QS input traffic. Down here. PSK recorder is here. And this is where it sends the data, this bottom one. It will send the data from WSJT-X on into Grid Tracker. So it's important, if you're gonna use Grid Tracker, it's important that you've got this set up and the 127.0.0.1, if you're gonna be on your same machine, that's the loopback address, so that's your machine. And then the key is port 2237 as a default UDP receiving port in Grid Tracker. If those don't match up, it's like making a phone call. I can call you, if I call the wrong number, it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's key that it's 2237, and the defaults are good. Now comes the tougher part, which is Grid Tracker. Grid Tracker's got a lot of stuff to set up, and I'll go over them fairly quickly.
I just wanted to add, I had gone through all my efforts of getting it to work. I wrote it all the settings down on a piece of paper so I can remember in case it gets screwed up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I recommend that to anybody.
Yeah.
I second that,
Yeah.
document that stuff.
Okay.
or the other better choice is there's something called the snipping tool,
Oh, yes.
is to just snip it and save it to a file. And it's put the file on a USB drive, so when the computer crashes, you can recover it. But yeah, the snipping tool can be very, oh, there's Jim. So this is what Grid Tracker looks like, and I changed a bunch of screens over today because they keep changing it. The last time I did this presentation was a couple of years ago. I went through and the screens have changed quite a bit. So as I mentioned before, this is WSJT-X on the left-hand side here, that's the port. That's gonna match up with that port right there where it says the first corner here. That has to match. So it's basically each other's, consider it their phone number. It's the port number, IP calls it the port number, but it's a phone number kind of thing. It's the link between the two pieces of software. And then once your grid square again. And basically that's used here to say, if you want to center the screen, you want to center the map on your grid square. I personally don't like to do that because we're so far north, it ends up with a lot of the map really low down. But I still leave it in there because it uses it. Lookups, this all has to do with looking up call signs, and they've just recently added, like within the last couple of weeks, they've added Canadian and Australian call signs that they can look up too. And this is good because you can see, number one, if it's a valid call sign or not. Grid Tracker, not Grid Tracker, WSJT-X is not perfect at receiving. Every once in a while I get North Korea, which I know is not true, but because of a data error in the transmission, it'll pop up as North Korea or Vatican City, and I get all excited, I need that one. When it pops up as Bouvet, I know definitely not a real one, but it will pop up once in a while. But at least these three countries now, they're downloading, they've been doing ULS for a long while, but they've now added Canada and Australia databases. So you can actually be sure that you've got a.
So is it just US, Canada, Australia?
Yep. You can also, if you've got a subscription, you can go out to QRZ and look it up there with, I think they're using, it's not HTML, it's JSON or something that it makes a query to it. But you got to pay monthly for the subscription for that one. And I choose not to. Logbook of the World also, it downloads that, and that's a key item. You'll see why later, but it downloads from Logbook of the World once a week all the people that have uploaded recently, and I'll tell you why that's important in a bit. Well, at least why it's important to me. They've also added some POTA stuff, which I haven't used yet, because I don't tend to chase POTA. I will answer them, but I don't tend to chase them. Audio here. This is for audio alerts. So if you turn audio alerts on, when say East Kilbati comes up, which they've been on a deactivation, they just pulled out of there. It'll say new DXCC. And that way, if I'm running around like making breakfast or something, I'll have the radio's on and I'll hear it pop up and it'll say, and it works. They're working on straightening out some bugs in it. It works 50% of the time right now. It can be handy. And like a lot of times I do a lot of radio work when I'm doing other stuff. Today I was doing this presentation and designing a circuit board and playing digital radio at the same time. So it's kind of can be a reminder when something comes up. The map, there's all kinds of things you can check here. As far as colors and stuff, I just go with the defaults. And you can, do that, yep. You can put in the missing grids. Again, you need the subscription to like QRZ to go out to the database. Oops, I think I went to. For logging, I like Grid Tracker to do all my logging for me. And this is not my current screen, but you can click on what you want, where you want each QSO sent, and it will send it. Literally, you finish the QSO, you say okay on WSJT-X, and within 30 seconds, it's on Logbook of the World.
So Grid Tracker does that.
Grid Tracker does it. You can also send it over to like N1MM, and then let N1MM bulk it up and ship it periodically. I like to just get it off the system and get it there. Welcome. There's a lot more information about logging. If you go back, you'll see there's some test buttons here, because you got to put call signs and passwords and credentials in for these different services. So you want to test them. Otherwise, you'll find it's not working. You know, you catch it early that it's not working. And that's what this is all about, it's just they can use a touch button. And logging does not have to be on the same physical machine. You may choose to run this on Linux, but you've got your logging program on a Windows machine, so you can do that. Alerts, this is where it starts speaking to you. You can check off, enable, like, you know, new call sign, and it will come back up and it'll say, you'll hear it say wanted call. That one's terribly annoying because they're always, you know. But things like wanted DXCC, or if it's chasing worked all states, that can be real handy if you're a person that plays radio while you're doing other stuff. And digital stuff, I find, lends itself to that. You know, obviously phone and CW don't, but digital lends itself to kind of playing in the background.
Yes.
Call roster, I skipped over that intentionally. This is some more information on logging, and you can tell that you want to log from, you want to look at certain date ranges. So say I've been working this for 4 years. I can say, well, somebody I worked 3 years ago, I can now rework them again. I'll consider that new. I know there's some stuff. There's one like a contest kind of thing that goes on every year, is how many DXCC entities you can get in the year. So in that case, you got to kind of restart that stuff. This also works for things like field day if you're using a different call sign. I haven't had a chance to mess with that yet. Before this, they put all this in, you kind of had to move your logs around and do field day and then stick stuff back onto the program. It was a little messy. This program is definitely it's in active development. And there's the main screen there.
Is this yours? Is this like a screenshot from yours? Or
This is, yeah, this one I pulled this morning. This is my main screen.
Wow.
It's a great activity in the background while you're doing other
Yeah.
stuff.
There's not much of the US and Europe that you're missing. Looks like you get a lot in Japan too.
Yeah, I got all of Japan. The stuff where it's brown or white, there are no people there.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But yeah, I've got quite a bit of it. You'll see up in the corner, that little funny arrow, that's a little status box that you can get. And then the top two are the call roster, which you'll see where you can actually click on them. And you'll see currently active transmissions. And if it's something you need, you can go ahead and click on it. And that's, I just kind of reiterated there. Award layers, you can actually, there's now, I think there's 10 award layers now. They go, that first one I showed there, the grid, all grids. That's how this program started out, is tracking grids. And then they tracked CQ zones. There's I think it's 40 CQ zones. They could track ITU zones, which there is 90 of those. They track continents. They're tracking US states, and now they're just, isn't that last release, Canadian provinces? I can't think what else there is. US grids is one people chase. And there is the call roster. You might find it. These are the columns here. You can right click on anywhere on it and it'll come down with a list of columns that you can select. So these are the columns I've selected. On the very far left is the call sign. What do I have to? Oh, the band, and then the grid, and then who they're calling. They're either calling CQ, the green ones are calling CQ. Otherwise, you can see that they're calling another station. And then I've got what DXCC entity it is. Now, if I needed something, that would be in bright orange. And if I had my audio alerts turned on, it would have come up when I took up on that bright orange thing, it would have said wanted DXCC. So this is where you can really make a huge impact on WSJT-X. If you were trying to chase like DXCC at worked all states with just WSJT-X, it would be a massive job. This keeps track of all that and highlights what you need. As we keep going over, we've got the US states, so I've got all the states, so now I'm showing orange. And the next is counties, I've been chasing counties. If you didn't have the county, it will pop up in an orange color. If you've worked it, but hasn't been confirmed, it's a kind of an orange color, but it's got a blackish background on it. And I don't think I've got any of them like that. Next, I've got the ITU zones. The frequencies are on, so they may be 14074 for 20 meters, but that's the frequency beyond that. Whether it's 500 or 1,000 or 2250 or wherever it is. And then I've got the ITU zone, I've got the prefix. I don't know why I don't turn that one off. The next column is key, logbook of the world. The ones that are checked, those are people that have sent, the way I've got it set up, and you can change the date range. They've sent up a log within the last 3 months. If they've got a question back, they participate in logbook of the world, but they haven't sent it up. It's more than 3 months since they've sent it up. And if there's nothing there, they don't participate. The way I look at it, if I'm playing baseball or football or any other sport, radio sport, if you're not keeping score, I'm not terribly interested in participating with you. Because it's, you're doing it for rewards and stuff. And if nothing more, just the numbers. So a lot of what I do see a lot, and POTA works kind of funny. I guess you can go out and do 10 contacts and get an activation, but you don't have to have a confirming log with it. So a lot of the POTA people aren't logbook of the world, and I watch them sit there and nobody's contacting them because the people are out, they're not POTA chasers, but would work them. They're not going to get it logged. So they just seem not to. I see a lot of good POTA signals and somewhat SOTA signals, but a lot of POTA signals that are good solid signals, and nobody's touching them. They're saying CQ POTA for a long time. And my suspicion is that since they're not logging currently, nobody's picking them up. And then what else we got?
Such a talent.
Yeah, what was the question?
No, I said such a
The
talent.
next column is a spot column. So that means since I've set up with PSK Reporter, Grid Tracker is also downloading spots. So it's saying if those 3 places there, I was spotted. So if I'm going to work somebody, well, they participate in logbook of the world, and I've spotted me. That's a pretty good chance that
You can make that connection.
I'm going to make that connection. I've kind of over 4 years have developed quite a bit of strategy as who I want to work next. Because I don't like to just, put my signal out there and it's probably not going to get touched. So this is one way that you can tell that, it will be touched. Next column is something called life. Life is how long how long Grid Tracker has been getting this call sign from WSJT-X. So if you look at a signal, it's got a life of 6 seconds. It just popped in. It may be one that's going to pop in 10 seconds, it's going to be gone. That's just the way propagation is. Beyond that, a column called age. So that's how long the last time it was seen. So if it's got in the next to last column, it's got a fairly high number, like I don't know, about 4 or 5 down there, and then a very small number. So it's been sitting around here. We've been seeing it for the last 10 minutes, and we just saw it 15 seconds ago. Good chance that's a good one to try to work because it's a solid signal and he's still there. There are some other considerations when you look at the call sign. I think I do have another slide. Many times a call sign is a consideration too. Do you want to try to work it? For instance, in a month ago, or in the last month, if you see our call sign T32TT, somebody's calling that, don't bother to try to work them. They're trying to get East Kabaddi. They're focused. Don't bother them. Don't be annoying. There's no sense generating the QRM because they're not going to respond to you, likely. A lot of times I will. If somebody calls me and I'm actually trying to get one, I will go ahead and answer it real quick and and get back to what I'm doing. But I understand why many people won't, because they need that all-time new one or that band slot.
How do you handle contest stations that are working non-conventional frequency split?
What?
Contest stations that are working and they're not using the standard frequencies and they're doing split, like Fox and Hamilton.
Then you've got to change the radio for that frequency, and I will touch upon that in a minute. Yep, I've got a whole slide about that. This here, if you hit the F1 key in Grid Tracker, you'll get this list of hotkeys. They're a double-edged sword. They can be convenient, but if you think focus is on your word processing document and it's actually on Grid Tracker and you start typing things in, all those letters, start resetting stuff.
I have had that happen.
Yes,
And it just destroyed my entire view that I built out for it.
yeah, and there needs to, it's something that needs to be done. They need to place a way of locking out hotkeys. There's only a couple of them that I use all the time. And if I didn't have them, I would not be upset by it. For whatever reason, they did it this way. You know, it's their program, they can do whatever they want. Key file locations, we're gonna make this, Zach's gonna put this somewhere on the website when we get the YouTube up. He's also gonna put this up where we can get to it. These key file locations are important. And you'll know, as I said, like user ID is whatever your user is. Like my user ID is Roger, so it's, you know, users, Roger, documents, Grid Tracker. Okay, the very bottom one, if you're running multiple rigs, you have to have a separate directory for WSJT-X, like for your, if you've got a 705 you're using to monitor, you create a separate directory for it. And I didn't put a slide in because it's getting a little advanced, but on the properties of the icon, you put, I think it says machine equals the machine name or whatever, and that creates a new set of directories that keeps track of them. So that's how you find it, whatever the rig name is. It might be Riggies, I can't remember what it is. So making two so as you want. And this is just a little more on, and a little bigger picture of the, what's called the call roster, which is a separate window from the map and stuff. So you can see that in this particular one, I needed Berlin County, it's bright yellow. The red one over there is what I was currently working when I snapped this. I was working that German station, or trying to work it. He was working somebody else. So I basically just was off on another another frequency within that 3 kilohertz range. And he'll see it come up, and like any pile up, they'll just work their way through them. And that's pretty much how I work most of the time. Is I'll work, stations that are already working somebody. I usually don't call CQ. I find I don't have to, because enough stations out there to work. And I think probably in the 4 years, I've gotten maybe 2 emails that said, "Why'd you keep calling me?" But everybody else, I mean, I want somebody to call me. When I'm done with, number 1, I'll do number 2, 3, and 4. And then I don't have to call CQ and I have to go looking around. I know somebody's already interested. So for me, I like to, somebody to be calling. And somebody else sees somebody, they need Cumberland County. And they'll call CQ Maine, or they'll just, call me and say, hey, and then I'll get an email back. Hey, thanks for Cumberland County, or thanks for Maine, or whatever. Because apparently we don't have that great a population, especially from, a long distance away. I don't know what else I can say about that. Screen. You'll notice in band, I've got all different colors. I've actually got 4 radios that I'm running 4 receivers.
Oh, that's how you have multiple bands going. I was wondering how that was
I'm
happening.
running 4 receivers. And that's why I showed in that first picture. You can have
Yeah, 'cause
multiple.
you're on Flex, right?
I'm running a Flex 66, so it's got 4 slice receivers in it. If like when 6 meters comes up, I'll pop up another radio and just on the 6 meter antenna, because magically 6 meters will come alive and I'll see it pop up and I can work the stations I need there. But yeah, that's how I'm doing that, is the fact I'm running on a Flex. But you can do the same thing. You can take your 7300 and your 705 and you can be on 2 bands. Granted, the 705 is probably not gonna get out the way you want to, but if you can see the station, then you can come on the 7300 and go over and work it. Or you can use like a little no-elect or a little SDR dongle.
Can you use SDR dongles with WSJT-X?
Yep.
Just as input, I assume,
I'm sorry?
just as input devices?
Yeah.
Like to watch?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you can't transmit on it, but you can,
Right.
you can receive on it. Okay, another thing that's key piece of information is time slots. It works both for FT4 and FT8. FT4 has shorter time slots, but there's basically an even time slot, which is the 0 and the 30-second mark, and an odd time slot, 15 and 45. What I observed over time is that most 95% of DX expeditions transmit in the 0 time slot. So if you see here, those first four there were the 4S7AB is in Sri Lanka. That was people calling him. Now on the call roster, and you'll see I got an arrow next to calling. You can click on the header and sort it. So one of the ways to tell there's a DXpedition out there is you will see a bunch of people calling a specific call sign. Then you go to QRZ and look, oh yeah, they're out on, this little rock out in the South Pacific. But if you notice the timestamp is all 45:15, 45:15. And if you notice down here at the bottom, Sri Lanka is there, he was at 0. I don't need him. You'll notice this is a guy that does QSL and LTW. So probably wasn't gonna work him anyway, but that's kind of how the whole thing lines up, if that helps to understand it. You can sort any way you want. Normally I sort on age. And usually if it's a DXpedition, you'll spot them pretty quickly that people are calling that call sign. And if you're in the 15 or 45 time slot, you'll say, oh, they're out there somewhere. I'll just stop transmitting, give it a 1 minute rest, and you can see if you can see it. And then if you want to continue on, working stations, just work people that are in the 0 time slot, in the 0 or 30. And that way, when they do finally pop up, you'll see them. But in the meantime, you can be working other stations. It turns out to be quite a bit of strategy to this. And that was just another example of odd and even time slots. And that was, I think, Indonesia. Yeah, Indonesia. He was there calling CQ. In fact, I was red. That means I was trying to work him. He's calling CQ, and you can see because there's a couple other people that were calling him in the odd time slot. And no, I didn't get him. I've got Indonesia, but I needed that grid, so, I gave it a shot this morning. I never heard them. You looked on DX News or something like that, you see, there's a DXpedition to Bouvet or North Korea or some island in the Pacific. I never heard them. This is where we talk about frequencies. DXpedition frequency. Look at the cluster. So go to, say, DX News and find that DXpedition. You'll then find, I clipped it, but you'll see where it says recent spots. And you can look at the recent spots and you'll find out that this one, for instance, I'm gonna go on this side here. Can't remember who this was. VK9CY, I think it's down off of south of Australia. Because we're seeing, I can't remember the name, island. But you'll see he was on 30 meters. There's a 10-133. The normal 10-meter FT8 slot of frequency is 10-136. But because there's a zillion people out there already, it's a lot better for a DXpedition to be off on some other frequency. But you won't know that unless you go to the one of the spotting clusters and see where it is and kind of chase them around. And once you figure out that, this one's is on the DXpedition frequencies, and kind of you can look for it. You can also use PSK Reporter, which we'll look for that in a second. The other thing that's key to look for here is, do I run normal mode, or standard or normal mode, WSJT-X, or run Fox and Hound? How do you know? Well, in this particular case, somebody reported, KW4J reported that he heard VK9CY on 10133 FH, Fox and Hound. So once you know they're Fox and Hound, you gotta click this button on WSJT-X, the FH button, and that will put you in Fox and Hound mode. If you're not in Fox and Hound mode, depending on exactly how things are going, sometimes it will work. But if he's actually got a pile up and he's working a whole bunch of stations, it's not gonna work, you're not gonna get him.
So what's that mean?
He'll hear you and he'll respond, but he'll respond, do I have it here on the next page?
What is Fox and Hound mode for those unfamiliar?
Is a shortened version of the WSJT-X exchange. Basically, that you don't exchange a grid square. It's basically just a signal report. And the last thing you'll get, you'll send your signal report, get his. To send yours, he'll send his, no, he'll send his, and then he'll send like an report received 73. It's like half the amount of transmissions. And it's also, I don't see it here, it must be in the next slide. A way you can tell if you don't find them in the cluster that they're marked. They never answered me. Don't you hate to just call and they never answer you? Well, there's a few reasons they might not answer you. Fox and Hound is a special FTA mode. You have found a nice clear spot at 500 hertz and you parked yourself there. You brought up full legal limit and they never heard me. They never acknowledged me. Oh, well, here's the reason. The Fox has to operate above 1 kilohertz. So usually I'm above at least 1050 because with ionospheric, Doppler shift and stuff, you can end up below 1000 fairly easily. And I know I'm dead on frequency, but sometimes if you look at PSK Reporter, when the time it gets to the halfway around the world, you're off by a few hertz. So if you're not above 1000, they're either running Fox and Hound or they're running MSHV Fox and Hound, which is a more of a de-expedition program. It can actually run 5 streams at once. So you can have, so they're actually communicating with 5 different chasers at one time.
It's probably a lot more efficient.
It's a double-edged sword. It's more efficient because they can make more contacts, but their power has to be split across all 5 transmissions. So if they're running 100 watts, it's down to 20 watts, effectively. The flip side of that, if they're running an amp even 500 watts, they can still get a 100-watt effective signal out for each slot. So it's double-edged, but on a de-expedition, they want to move as many QSOs as possible. So the Fox operates below 100. They'll be below 1000. I mean, they'll be somewhere usually between 300 and 1000. And usually they stay low. Usually they stay in the 300 to 400. It's what I've seen them to do, at least with their base frequency. If they're running MSHV, running 5 streams, you'll actually see them on the waterfall here. You'll see all 5 streams scattered out maybe 50 hertz apart. They'll be at 300, at 400, 500, 600. You'll see them. And you'll see how many streams they're running. A lot of times on the cluster, somebody will put a note, MSHV 5 streams, that's what they've received and what they've seen. The cluster is something we do for each other, to let people know that, you're out there and you're, on this little deserted isle, this little rock, and you're ready to be worked. You're a rare. And if somebody doesn't tell, you'll see it in NDX News that they're coming. They may post something in DX News while they're doing it, and they may not, because they may not have internet access. Although I have found out more and more de-expeditions taking a Starlink with them. It's awesome. So that's kind of why you're not heard, why they didn't answer you. And they'll only answer above 1,000. Don't try it. I mean, you can try it if you want to, but nah, you just send it home. You just queue around home. Who's here and who? I've been running 3 or 4 PSK reporters. This one was me, this is mine over here. And that's running on, and I'll get to this side. That's running on Microsoft Edge. The one to the left, I was looking at, VK9DX, because that's something I need. That's running on Chrome. And the one on top, I was looking for Vietnam, which is running on Firefox. One browser instance can only have one thing at a time, thing at a time. If you change, you have 2 like copies of Edge, and you change one of them, the other one will also. If you have one look at a certain DX, certain call sign, it'll change the other one because they use a cookie. But if you use separate browsers, you can have several PSK reporters up if you're trying to chase different things. And sometimes you just want that all-time new one. And you work hard at it. This is another way to find out what frequency they're on. Because if you hover over it down in the corner, it'll pop up and tell you what frequency they're on. So then you can figure out that, yeah, they're on a de-expedition frequency. And I've had a few of them that have been, there's a few common de-expedition, and some of them just like off the wall. But it's where they could find a quiet spot apparently. Right now it's real quiet. There's almost no de-expeditions out there, but there's a bunch coming this week. I don't know if Steve Hauser is in our group or not. He's over in Buxton. He wrote this thing in Node Red that will catch stuff off WSJT-X. It looks like, I haven't played with it yet. It looks like you could actually say, okay, Bouvet just came in. I could set up, they use Node Red for like home automation and stuff. But it looks like you could probably make it send out a text message to your phone or an email or anything else. And Node Red can do a lot of stuff. And it's
Can do a lot of things.
yeah, this node was created by Steve over in Buxton. And I've got to play with it, but it looks like there's a lot of potential to alert you. And I've known of people that needed, where did she needed something in Japan. She needed like whatever they have, provinces, whatever they have over in Japan, she needed it. And she set up something like that so that it would wake her up at night when that particular came up but she left the radio running all the time, looking for it. So there's a lot of automation that can be done.
Yeah, I need a camera.
Okay.
Build stuff up.
Don't be that guy. I'm sorry.
I need a camera, build stuff up.
You know what?
Camera. Fred Kammerer's wife
Yeah.
built a, little computer on
Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. Okay. Must be you told me about it. Yeah.
Yeah. she
I
had
knew
a
somebody told me
Raspberry
about
Pi
it.
set up, and it just, she was looking for, she needed to get 1 or 2 more zones or prefectures or whatever. in
Yeah.
Cities.
Yeah.
In Japan. And so when that city came up at 2 o'clock in the morning, the thing would go off.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, with the digital stuff, there's a lot of automation you can do.
Her husband wrote a program
Yeah.
that does all this automatically.
Yeah.
Send
Um,
and receives automatic.
yeah.
All you see is the log running on the screen.
Impressive.
Okay, so my next slide is don't be that guy. We've got a de-expedition. They've announced they're going to be using MSHV in Fox and Hound mode with 5 streams on 40 meters using a DX commander. So somebody in the cluster says they post PSE beam northeast USA 40. It's a vertical. It doesn't beam anywhere. It's equally bad in all directions. Okay, they've got a 2x1 call sign. Is that a problem to me? No. You find a clear spot at 7.5 and start responding to the expedition. They're not going to answer. They're just not going to. But I've seen people parked there. Not only are they parked there, they're parked in the wrong time slot. What that tells me is They saw in the cluster that this guy is active. And they queued up and said, well, I'll just start sending a signal out. If you can't hear them, it doesn't matter if it's CW, phone, or digital. If you can't hear them, you cannot work them. You can't exchange a signal report, no matter how good you are. So remember, when you're looking at the cluster, and I don't know how many have looked at the cluster, but DXpedition spent a lot of time and money to do this stuff. And there's some people out there that don't respect that think they're out there for their all-time new one. Not realizing there's another million people who would like to also get that all-time new one. And you see the people that say, oh, guys and gals, mostly guys and gals that say, oh, it's such a terrible DXpedition. Well, on field day, you don't stay overnight because there's too many bugs, it's too hot, it's too cold on winter field day. You don't want to take the 5-day boat trip to field day. There's a lot of work to this. Yeah, if you're worked all states in the US, it's pretty easy. If you're trying to work the South Pacific, it's not that easy. This is one of my pet peeves, what people do, what you'll see in the cluster. It's like, and these are just some resources that are in there. And then once we get once we get it out there, then you'll be able to have these links and stuff. All fairly important. DX News is a great place to go for announcements. Announced DXpeditions seem to be different ones. There doesn't seem to be a place where they're all consolidated. So you've got to find a few different spots. And the DX News calendar. Let's see what else I got. I guess that's the end of it. I came in 2 hours.
You did?
Any questions? I know I went pretty quick.
You want to talk about the graph a little bit in WSJT-X as far as locking in your, you can get a few slides back.
You mean this
Yeah,
here?
this one here. There's some talk online about making sure that you try to find a clear section and lock into that.
Yeah,
With your green and your red, and you right click, control right click, and lock into a particular area, but don't move in on somebody else that's using that same area. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
Because that's was one of these guys says, oftentimes he'll lock in an area, he'll work that area, but then people start moving in and completely blow his signal.
Well, a lot of times, keep in mind, you may be able to hear them, but they can't hear you.
Right.
And you may be able to hear the DX station, but everybody else is trying to get that DX station. They can't hear you because of propagation. The other thing to keep in mind is this here is only on receive. So if you're transmitting along, I got a really good spot. You don't know you've got a good spot because you're only seeing what's being received. While you're in the transmit cycle, the 15-second or 7.5 second for FT4 transmit cycle, you don't know what's going on.
But you try to avoid the orange spots.
Try to avoid it.
Yeah.
I would like to get with Joe Taylor and talk some deep how this works, but it seems like part of this weak signal stuff is to peel off the layers. So if there's like 3 people in that one slot, somehow it's peeling them off. It's peeling off like the loudest one, and then eliminating it, and then peeling the next layer down, peeling like an onion. I don't fully understand how it works, but that's the best I can kind of understand from what I've read. But I would love to have about 15 minutes to pick Joe's brain. That's probably all my brain could tolerate with a PhD.
Sometimes I jump around a lot and I get a different waterfall and I want to clear it. So I found that the little square over in the upper left-hand corner of the waterfall where you can show the controls.
Yeah.
Click it twice and it keeps.
Yep.
That's just a handy thing to know.
Yeah, you can clear it. And that can be helpful. But the biggest thing to remember is that this waterfall is what you're receiving.
Right.
So when you're transmitting, don't think you're in a clear spot. And what I found also is the waterfall on the radio is far better than this. So you're better off, if you're not quite sure, just stop transmitting for like 1 cycle. You can look at the radio waterfall and see what it really looks like. At least with the flex, that's my experience. Any other good questions? You know, I told Zach we would, you know, we can do some evening if this questions after you set stuff up or, you know, you'd like to take even a deeper dive.
Yeah, I've already added it to the ideas section of our monthly workshop meetings, brainstorming areas, so. If there's interest in it, let us know, and we can definitely have a night focused on FTA and
Yeah.
Grid Tracker. I'm not entirely sure how we would do that. People would probably need to bring in a radio or two. We could probably grab the Go kit from the bunker, I would imagine. and,
Yeah. If my
light
laptop
bulb
was,
side.
if my laptop was running right, we could have connected to my radio at home. But it's being a flake ball tonight, so. I could also bring a radio in if you wanted to do it. If we could find a way to get a little intent, you know, like a,
Yeah, we've got at the bunker, we have a Go kit that has a 7100. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, 7100, and we have a buddy pull kit as well.
yeah,
So we can just run through the window out here and then walk through all the settings and
Yep.
answering people's questions.
yeah.
I think that'd be a good use of time.
Yeah, or, you know, next month, if you know, a couple of people haven't got, you know, Grid Tracker yet, or they may wanna try some stuff. I can certainly make sure I make it over, as long as it's not snowing.
Yeah.
I'm only 18 minutes away, so it's not like it's a big deal to come
Yeah.
over here. Sometimes I just join out of convenience on Zoom because
I get it.
I'm sitting there, you know.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, I'm happy to do it. Hopefully I answered questions and didn't cause confusion.
Very informative. Very well, very informative, I learned it.
Who hasn't signed it?
Right, give me just a moment here. Like that. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
I've done this one 2 times.